This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. We're here in Sheffield and we've just completed the weigh-in for Dalton Smith versus Sam Mason and the rest of the card, joined by promoter Eddie Hearn. Eddie, how are you?
I'm very well, Andy, thank you. It's a very nice afternoon in Sheffield. Looking forward to a great show tomorrow, the next gen. Big night for Dalton Smith, great support and a big fight for him.
Talk to me about the weigh-ins first and foremost. What did you make of both Dalton and Sam on the scales?
Both in brilliant shape, as you'd expect. I mean, look, you know, two different paths here. Sam Mason's had to do it the hard way, didn't get many opportunities coming through, had to go to Spain and fight in the away corner in a really tough fight, but gets the opportunity to headline in his home city, and he's going to give it everything. He's in great shape. I think he's up against a special fighter in Dalton Smith, who's going to have massive support in the arena tomorrow. And I think you're going to see, you know, the crowning of a British champion who's going to go on and become a world champion in Dalton Smith.
The question's been asked over social media as to who's kind of the next up-and-coming star of British boxing, and Dalton's always been in the top 5 when being mentioned. He comes through tomorrow night, he picks up that British title. How quickly would you like to see him move forwards with his career?
I think that, you know, he has all the ability to go on and move into world level already, but it's just a case of getting it right, listening to Grant, listening to STN and plotting it together. This is a massive opportunity for him because, as we know, it's very difficult outside of the big shows to let a young prospect headline. And this is why the Next Gen shows are so important. This is a great opportunity for him because you emerge a Next Gen headliner into a main event headliner on a normal show. But to do that, you have to be in big fights. The response that we've seen from Sheffield, the timing's perfect for Dalton Smith to emerge as a star from this city because Kel's retired, you know, Kid Galahad lost. They're looking for that new star, and I think you've got a guy who can go on and win world titles. So there are many prospects in British boxing, but there aren't many at the level Dalton's at, ready to crack onto that scene, and I think it's a very important night for him.
Sandy Ryan, Eric Farias getting very heated up on stage once again, Eddie.
Brilliant fight, and you know, I have big respect for Sandy because anyone that gets beat, dusts themselves down and comes back stronger should be commended, and especially one who comes and wants to go straight back into the rematch. She's in the shape of her life. I mean, she's 4 pound lighter, she looks 14 pound lighter. You know, she's worked tirelessly for that fight. This is a tough fight. Farias is a 2-division world champion. She's like a world-class fighter now, and it's going to be a very tough night's work for Sandy Ryan, but I believe she can do it.
Just one final one on Next Gen shows before we move on, Eddie. When you guys teamed up with DAZN over here in the UK, I think many people never really expected to see the continuation of that series. Is this going to be more of a plan moving forward to reintroduce it beyond this show in Sheffield?
There's only going to be a handful of them a year, but it's just, like I said, it's sometimes when you're trying to do massive shows all the time and you've got, you know, the Canelo against Triple G, AJ against Usyk, you know, maybe Conor Benn against Eubank Jr, Lee Wood maybe against Maurizio Lara, Josh Warrington, Katie Taylor. It's hard to do Dalton Smith as a headline of one of those nights. So Next Gen gives us a chance to give all these good young fighters the platform to go on. It's like the graduation scheme to those bigger shows. And it's really important to when you've got a star like Dalton Smith, to enable him to headline a show like this, to build the fan base and sort of take the career in the route you want to. So you're not going to see loads of them, you're going to see a sprinkle of them during the year, but really important for the younger fighters.
Moving away, like we said, Lerrone Richards has come out and said that he's obviously parted ways with yourselves. The Ali Akhmadev fight was offered but just not taken. Just want to get your thoughts on not being able to maybe get him the fight he wanted, and the recent level and amount of fighters that you've maybe seen leave and go to Sky Sports, mainly obviously the likes of CBS recently fighting those only one fight deal, Liam Smith, Savannah Marshall, Hughie Fury and a few others. Yeah,
they're all fighters, the contracts were up, and you know, we made offers on some of those fighters we had the right to match the offers and chose not to. And with Lerrone Richards, we just kind of got to a point where, you know, I offered him the Ali Akhmadev fight on the Canelo Triple G card. I thought it was such a brilliant opportunity for him. He's really difficult to get fights for because he's really good and he's tough to beat. And you know, for one reason or another, he hasn't become the draw with us or previously with Frank Warren that maybe he should go on to be. And I don't really know what the solution is with him because, like I said, he's a world-class fighter, but it's very difficult to get him the opportunities because no one's looking at Lerrone to fight. I feel like he should have taken the Ali Akhmadev fight, and when he didn't, there's nothing else really I felt we could do for him, and I think he'd be better off, you know, maybe with some other guidance. So I don't know where he's going to go, but he's a tremendous fighter, brilliant fighter, lovely young man, and we wish him all the best.
What have you made of how competitive Sky have been in the market since the split with yourselves?
I think it's great for boxing. I mean, we have to work as a business and value a fighter in terms of we value them. And Chris Billam-Smith was a good example. We had a contract where we had the right to match any offer. They came to us and said, this is our offer from Sky, and we said, I think you should take it. We're not interested in matching that. We can't headline you, and I think you should take that fight. Maybe he comes back to us and works with us again because, you know, you got certain fighters are always going to feel like they're a bigger priority. Liam Smith, another example, phoned me up, said, this is my offer I've had from Sky. I said, take it. You know, so I don't see it maybe the way that others see it, where it's like, you know, we have to prioritise certain fighters. Some we can't headline, some we can. But we also have to try and work with fighters that are draws, that are going to drive subscribers, that are going to drive interest. And you know, we have our headline acts. And certain fighters at that level might not be headline acts. Like, I couldn't do Liam Smith against Masanda Wumba or... sorry?
Liam Smith versus
Hasim Rahman as a main event. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So, like, I have to do Katie Taylor headlining at the Garden. I have to do, hopefully, Lee Wood against Maurizio Lara. I have to do Josh Warrington, you know, against his mandatory, the Mexican. I have to do Joe Caldina against Rakimov, or, you know, those unification fights.
Losing those fighters, though, does it not maybe water down your stable at all?
Because if I can't give them the fights and the slots, and they're not driving subscribers, they become... You know, the value of those fighters, Andy, is not... I know it sounds terrible, but some fighters we don't need in terms of our plans for what we're trying to do in the UK and for global expansion. And if they can be main event on another platform for more money, take it. You know, there's some fighters that we either might lose or we could have signed that we would have liked to have had on the platform. You know, but it becomes to a point where the business doesn't work, but we want to be competitive and, you know, we want to make the best fights. But there are certain fighters that are 1,000,000% off, better off elsewhere, because they just can't be a priority for what we're building globally.
Moving away from that, Eddie, since we last spoke and before me joining ID Boxing, we've had the announcement of Sky picking up the UK rights to the Anthony-Joshua Alexander Usyk rematch. I just want to get your understanding of how that was received by DAZN.
Just DAZN were told, very similar actually, DAZN were told a number they had to pay. They said no, Sky said yes, and the deal was done. We weren't involved in that process. Anthony Joshua has pledged his long-term future to DAZN. We always knew this fight was outside of that agreement. It was a huge number that Sky paid, and obviously you've seen the increase in the pay-per-view price, and that they were willing to pay it, and DAZN weren't. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is just business, Andy. You know, like, and you have to make a decision. If you go around making decisions with your, let's just say, your genitals, you make bad decisions. So sometimes you have to look at situations and say, no, not for me, or yes for me. Sometimes you have to overpay. Sometimes you have to pay the right money, and everything's strategic. But in this instance, they just said no. So that was how it worked.
Does it become a risk or a gamble, though, for DAZN to have obviously secured the long-term future of Anthony Joshua? Because if he wasn't to be successful in the rematch, where do you go then beyond?
Don't make sense. It's what people have got to understand. It doesn't matter about the long-term future. They have Anthony Joshua. He's signed to DAZN. But if this fight is going to lose them substantial amounts of money, don't do it. Let someone else do it. This is just business. So, of course, they would have loved AJ Usyk on at the right price, where the economics could have actually made sense. But you get to a level where you look at the numbers, and in the view of the pay-per-view numbers for that fight, no, that's not going to be a profitable exercise for us. We'll pass, thank you. And now it's over to another broadcaster. The pressure's on them to deliver the numbers to make it work.
What are your thoughts on the increase in the pay-per-view price?
It's easy to go, I can't believe it's got more expensive. They paid a lot of money, Andy. Again, it goes back to, for Sky to try and make money out of this fight, they had to increase the pay-per-view price. It's not going to go down well in the current environment, but that's what they had to do. So if fans want to spend that money, they spend it. If they don't want to. But I understand why they did it, because I know what they paid. So you either don't pay the money and walk away, or you do pay the money and you have to make it work. And that's their way to try and make it work.
The international rights for that fight haven't been announced yet. Do you know where things currently stand on that front?
I do actually, yeah. And I think, again, it's not for me to announce, but Saudi will announce that in due course.
It's not for you to announce. Can you give us a hint as to whether it will be on DAZN or not?
I think there'll be certain territories on DAZN, yes, but obviously wait for the official announcement.
Just a word on the undercard as well, Eddie. You previously mentioned, you previously asked rather whether any of Ben Whittaker, for example, could be on the undercard. You said Sky or Adam Smith wouldn't have a say in that. Speaking to them last week, it seems like Ben Whittaker will be on that undercard. Just your thoughts?
Yeah, 258 have a slot on the card. It was going to be Suleiman Sissoko, but he's injured, unfortunately. So whoever AJ or 258 choose to take that slot will get that slot. If that's Ben, I'd love to have Ben on the show. It'd be fantastic. Whether that's on the TV portion or early on, there's about 13 fights on the card at the moment. A lot of random ones as well, a lot of good ones. And 258 contractually have a slot for a fighter on the card with us. So if it's Benn, brilliant.
What's it been like for yourself to kind of work on this deal, this card, without actually, well, sorry, having the Saudis kind of take a lot of control over the production?
So nice, because we don't have to do anything. Just got to turn up on fight week. I mean, look, the Saudis are great partners. Skills Challenge, you know, they're great partners as well. Our involvement has been doing the deal, and really, we've got slots on the undercard. We've not had to get involved in the commercials of the deals. Some things, you know, obviously this is the first time they've done it, so some things have been smoother than other things. But, you know, for us, it's about winning the fight. So we'll just rock up with AJ and we'll promote the fight, obviously with Skills Challenge, and do our best job there. And really the most important thing is to see AJ win the fight.
You said you want to see AJ back out in December, and AJ said he wants to do that, I assume, regardless of the result on August 20th. But in the heavyweight scene, Fury Chisora has been coming up now as a potential fight. What's your understanding of where things stand on that?
Derek got an offer from Tyson Fury's representatives to do the fight in December. Wasn't enough money. I think he went back with a number that he wanted, and I don't know if anything's progressed from there.
How close was the number that was offered?
Yeah, nowhere near.
Joyce-Parker was announced the other day. That one seemed to be kind of dead in the water when Joe Parker went and signed with Sky. What was your thoughts on seeing that one come back into fruition?
I think that it's just natural, isn't it? You know, I think Joe Parker signed with Sky. They haven't really got any fights for him, so they had to go and do the deal with BT. And I think it's a good fight. I think, you know, it's a good fight for the division, and a good fight for Joe Joyce, because he's been looking for that kind of big name or big fight. And I think it's a good fight.
Canelo-Golovkin 3 landing on DAZN pay-per-view here in the UK, Eddie. I'm sure you've seen there's been critics of that as we've spoke about pay-per-view just. What's your thoughts on seeing that one land on pay-per-view over here?
Just, you're going to see the mega fights on pay-per-view on DAZN. It's probably the biggest fight in boxing. I know the second fight was on pay-per-view at a different time, you know, and people put up interviews from 2 years ago. And like I said, you know, if I would have said to you, Andy, 6 months ago, you're going to leave Boxing Social and you're going to be running and working with a new company called ID Boxing, you may have said, oh, well, I won't be joining Boxing Social, I love it here. Next thing, you're here standing there with ID Social. Things change, landscapes change, business change, and for them, it's the biggest fight in boxing, and that's the model they've chose to do. It's $60, $70 in the US. It's obviously a fraction of that over here, and that's their decision.
You did completely butcher up the names of those businesses there, Eddie.
Social and ID Boxing.
ID Boxing, you said ID Social.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that you care, but
I like that.
ID Boxing.
No, ID Social. Maybe we'll make that.
You never know, Eddie, you can do. How many pay-per-view boys would you actually expect that to do over here in the UK?
No idea. I mean, 40,000, 50,000. Like, it's not, you know, it's not going to, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, but it's the biggest fight of the year, really.
Well, that being the point, obviously, if you don't expect it to do huge numbers, what would be the benefit of putting it on pay-per-view?
I think that's one for DAZN. I mean, I think if it's a model that's going to be used for the mega fights and it's pay-per-view in one market, particularly the US, and not pay-per-view in another market, I don't know. It's a decision they choose to make. Whether it does 50,000, 100,000, you know, it's their decision.
Eubank Jr and Benn, where do things currently stand, Eddie?
We're negotiating, we're talking. I mean, look, myself and Calla and Frank Smith all have very good relationships. I think we all understand it's the fight to make. Conor Benn wants this fight. He's willing to step up and take this fight. Whether Chris Eubank wants the fight, I think he does as well. And I think it's 9 weeks tomorrow, and I think we need to make a decision fairly soon. And I think that there's a good chance it'll be made, but it's not made yet.
Sonny Edwards and Julio Cesar Martinez again. Where do things stand with that one, Eddie?
Good again. I think pretty much terms are agreed on that. There's a few things to tie up. I think it's a fantastic fight. I actually think it's one of the best unification fights in boxing to be made. I think Sonny Edwards is a tremendous fighter. I think he's very awkward, very slick, and I love Julio Cesar Martinez. He's a brute, and he beat his brother. Oh, no contest. So there's a lot of history there. Sonny's made it clear he'll take that fight in the US. He'll take that fight in Mexico. I'd love to do a huge fight in Mexico, and Sonny says no problem. So October 22nd is the preferred date for that fight, and I think you'll see it.
Hasim Rahman Jr pulling out of a Jake Paul fight. Eddie, did you not have any cruiserweights ready to go?
Oh, loads. But, you know, we had Chev Clark ready to go. We had some super middleweights, light heavyweights ready to go. They're not willing to fight them. But, you know, I think Hasim Rahman, there's a lot of backwards and forwards. Who knows the real story? But we'll see what happens.
Final more quick ones again. I know this isn't kind of your card, but KSI Alex Wassabi, pay-per-view announced again on DAZN. What's your thoughts? I know it's a different audience, but again, your thoughts?
I mean, totally different audience to boxing, but huge ticket sales, huge pay-per-views. I mean, it's great actually for me and DAZN because you're bringing in hundreds of thousands of new subscribers to the platform, and hopefully they can stay and watch the real boxing as well at the same time. KSI, genius, you know, has a huge fan base, going to do huge numbers and great business for DAZN.
Eddie, final one. Why should everyone tune in tomorrow night?
Tune in because you're going to see the future stars of British boxing, particularly Dalton Smith, who I think can go on and win a world championship. You're going to get a great atmosphere, particularly the 3 championship fights on the card. Dalton Smith against Sam Maison, also Erica Farias against Andi Ryan, great rematch, and Jordan Thompson against Vasil Ducar. Look out for that fight. Johnny Fisher, Campbell Hatton, loads more. Don't miss it live on DAZN. Michael McKinson later on against Virgil Ortiz about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Perfect. Thank you, Eddie.